Now this is not something that I thought we'd be talking about in the offseason of 2023. Today we're talking about the New York Rangers and going over to one of the top dogs on their team, one of the top dogs in the league, and debating whether or not it's possible we see this guy on the move. Now, don't shoot me. I'm just a messenger here. I'm making a video about an article I saw online that was pretty... is popular the right word to use? I don't know. I saw a bunch of people talking about this on social media. Of course, you could kind of tell how quickly articles are able to circulate around the web nowadays. So when this caught onto my radar, when I saw this pop up, I was like, okay, I need to read that. I need to take a look at what exactly the analysis is here and just kind of discuss it on the channel, because today we're talking about Artemi Panarin, franchise superstar of the team. And yeah, I'm going to say franchise, not elite, I'm going to say franchise. He's 31 years old, 5'11", 174 pounds, left wing, right-handed guy, and he's a pretty expensive player. $11.6 million a year. I was about to say the entire cap hit, but yeah, there's a lot of numbers in there. 11.64 million, we could just say, per season until the end of 2026, and he is the highest paid winger in the entire National Hockey League. Now, that may change soon when Mitch Marner inevitably gets his extension sometime in the next year and a bit, but for now, Artemi Panarin is number one in terms of AAV for wingers. There are some centers making more than him, of course, McDavid, McKinnon, Matthews, but for the wingers, Panarin is there. And for pretty good reason as well. The guy had 92 points in 82 games played last season and 96 points in 75 games the year before that, even though his playoff production did kind of take a steep decline this previous postseason against the New Jersey Devils because he only had 2 assists in 7 games played. Artemi Panarin is still regarded as one of the premier offensive wingers in the league. 3 90-point years, that 95-point season in 2019-20, he did so in 69 games played only. So, totally on pace for a 100-point-plus year, but of course, that year was shut down due to COVID. But the reason we're talking about Panarin in this video today is because of an article published on EmpireSportsMedia.com. This was posted by Eric Wilson a few days ago on September 7th, and the title says this: the Rangers could look to offload their $11.6 million forward. Okay, now that is bold. The article begins by talking about Artemi Panarin. It talks about how he has been the most productive forward in the Rangers since signing with the organization in July of 2019. He's got 341 points in 268 games with the Blue Shirts. Panarin has led the Rangers in almost every offensive category throughout his 4-year tenure, and it's safe to say that the recent success of the organization would have been much more difficult to achieve without Panarin. But at 31 years old, his contributions may start to dwindle. This is where the article gets into critiques. And it's interesting because while Artemi Panarin has been one of the top paid players, he's definitely not a perfect player. And I think a lot of people who look at the Rangers, who saw what they did in the postseason, can acknowledge that even though Panarin is very talented, this is not necessarily the guy that you're getting 100% of the time. He is not always at his best, and there are some moments that he has where he could be quite disappointing. Panarin's biggest flaw, this article writes, is his surplus of offensive turnovers. He's one of the smartest wingers in the NHL, continuously generating highlight reel plays with his strong knowledge of the game. However, there are times when Panarin tries to do too much. Rather than seizing an open scoring opportunity, he'll opt for a foolish pass that costs the Rangers puck possession. This flaw has been exploited by many teams, and unless head coach Peter Laviolette has a system to fix it, the problem will only grow worse with time. And that's an interesting point to bring up. Artemi Panarin, as we noted, did not really do all too well for the Rangers against the New Jersey Devils, and I think a lot of Rangers fans would agree that there were other guys that were also pretty top-tier talents that performed a lot better. Patrick Kane, I saw his name floating around a lot, and I was really impressed with Tarasenko in the postseason against New Jersey. Panarin just didn't have that same X factor in that 7-game stint in this year's playoffs, unfortunately so. And for a Rangers team that kind of loaded up on forwards this previous trade deadline period, It's understandable to see why that's a huge disappointment, especially when you consider that Panarin in last year's playoff in 2022 had 16 points in 20 games played as the Rangers made it to the third round. So overall, this is a team that needs its star players to act like star players, but with Artemi Panarin, he is not a star player 100% of the time. And in the most dire situations, you could see that sometimes he kind of double clutches a little bit, and it costs the Rangers puck possession. With 3 years remaining on his contract with the Rangers, it's possible that Drury could look to move Panarin while his value is still high. Many teams would pay a hefty price for the star winger, and the Rangers certainly have a lot of holes to fill left in the lineup. Trading Panarin would open a spot on the left side for Alexis Lafreniere to receive top 6 minutes, and the return package could include some depth on the right side as well. A trade could also provide opportunities for a handful of young prospects looking to fight their way into an NHL role. Now, this is just one article out of many written in the past talking about the Rangers and talking about Panarin, but this is one of the only articles that's actually suggesting the idea of trading him. The article then says, hey, a trade would clear a huge chunk of Rangers cap space because, $11.6 million a year, that's not cheap. And it also goes into an entire section as to whether or not the Rangers are likely to trade Panarin. Ultimately, the article concludes this. Despite there being a handful of reasons why Drury could look to move on from Panarin, a trade seems less than likely to actually happen. Panarin has his flaws, and he comes at a huge price. Why does it say huge price? They probably wrote this article on their phone, I'm sorry. But his contributions to the Rangers are too essential to the team's success to give away. There is a quote included from the Hockey News. People might not be happy with the showing from Panarin in the past 2 playoff runs, but there is something to be said about how his regular season performances get the Rangers to this point in the first place. There are always arguments about how the regular season doesn't matter, but for this upcoming season, those 82 games are going to set the standard for an organization with brand new staff that is starving to bring the Stanley Cup back to New York City. There's a little bit more in this article that we did not read and touch on, so I'll leave a link in the description if you want to read more about that yourself. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. How does this make you feel? The idea that Artemi Panarin's play has been franchise caliber. I'm still going to call him a franchise player, not elite. I think he's better than that. He is still one of the premier wingers in the entire NHL, but with his deficiencies in mind, does it make more sense for you to move on from this guy, free yourself up from that money, open up a top 6 spot for Alexis Lafreniere and get some extra depth pieces back, and move on from Panarin and his services? Or do you think it's a lot more beneficial to stick with the course, to say, hey, we have an $11.6 million player on our team that plays like somebody who is worth the best winger in the league type of money. So let's keep him around, try to bolster up and build on the skills that he does have, surround him with guys that can play to his strengths, and try to fix a lot of the offensive turnovers with a new coaching identity with Peter Laviolette in here. There are a lot of options, especially with a new coach, but what do you think about this idea that a trade could be possible if the Rangers decide to move him out? Now, the one thing that we have not talked about in this entire video that we kind of saved towards the end here because it's kind of the hook, Panarin has a full no move. So if he does get traded, it's gonna be by his own hand. He has to say yes to it, he has to agree, but at the same time, players having no moves and no trade clauses, etc., these have been overcome in the past. If a team really wants to move a guy, we've seen more so over the past few years that guys are able to acquiesce and say yes to whatever trade idea is there. Sometimes they'll say no, they'll reject the trade flat out, but more often than not, if a team expresses that they're interested in trading a guy away, it's more common nowadays that the guy will just let it be and say okay. But either way, when it comes to Panarin, do you see a trade coming soon? Do you think they're going to sacrifice the top winger in the NHL in terms of money to open up some extra space and get some more guys? Or do you think they're just going to play out the deal? Play him until 2026, he'll expire then, he'll be a UFA then, and that's the time when the Rangers could use that $11.6 mil for something else. Thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.